Have you ever noticed that no matter how many times you move houses, change your routine, or even switch cities, it feels like you're still living the same thing? The same emptiness, the same anxiety, the same exhaustion. That's not a coincidence. It was by design. They taught you to think in a straight line, but your mind was made to think the way the universe thinks, in multiple dimensions. It's just that no one ever told you that, because a being that thinks in 3 dimensions is easy to control. And that's why you feel stuck even when you're doing everything right. But now you're going to remember what they tried to erase. Today you're going to understand why your consciousness never fit into the world's logic. Moreover, you will learn how Thoth used 4-dimensional thinking to alter his own reality and how you can do the same. This isn't theory, it's practice. And as you awaken, you will grasp the secret vibrational technique that Thoth revealed and how it can change everything, starting today. So take a deep breath, because the awakening has already begun. Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the dense, gently and with great skill. Rise from earth to heaven and then descend again to earth and receive the power of both the higher and the lower things. The oldest civilizations knew all of this, and they never thought in straight lines because they already understood the true shape of time. And that's where things start to change. Because unlike what you learned in school, time wasn't always seen as this straight line that starts at birth and ends at death. Before Cartesian logic, before Newtonian physics, there was another perspective, a view that didn't come from formulas but from direct observation of the soul. And this view said the following: time is a living, vibrant, intelligent field, a fabric where everything is already happening, just at different frequencies. That's why the Mayans saw time as a spiral. For them, each cycle wasn't a repetition but a reactivation. The same point returned, but at a different level of consciousness. They understood that time had memory, that it folded in on itself, and that every moment carried within it all the others. There was no before or after. There were layers of experience accessible through vibration. The Egyptians also spoke about this, just in a different way. For them, time was a state of consciousness. They called it duat, not a physical place, but a plane where the past and future coexist. It wasn't a belief. It was knowledge. In the ceremonies of Thoth's priests, time was manipulated through sound, geometry, and intention. They weren't trying to predict the future. They were trying to align with it. Because when you access the right consciousness, time bends. In the Corpus Hermeticum, this same principle is described in simple yet profound terms. Time is a reflection of eternity projected onto matter. This means that the reality you live now is like a distorted shadow of a much greater field where everything is already manifested, just in a subtle form. And whoever learns to touch that field learns to redesign the shadow. That's why shamans from different cultures entered altered states of consciousness. They knew that the time of nature wasn't the same as the time of the ordinary mind. The jaguar, the thunder, the eagle's flight, all of that was temporal language. Signs of a reality where time doesn't move, it pulses. And here comes something few have noticed. These civilizations didn't see time as something that passes. They saw time as something that responds, that changes everything. Because if time isn't a line dragging you, then you're not being pulled, you're navigating. And that gives you power. But that power was taken because the moment you understand that time is a field, you stop chasing things. You start tuning in. You stop being a hostage to the clock, to age, to deadlines, to hurry. And that is not convenient for a system that feeds off your anxiety. Have you noticed that almost everything being sold today has to do with urgency? Products promising more free time, methods to not waste time, gurus saying you're falling behind. It's a machine built to keep you in a state of running, but you never arrive. This illusion of a straight line keeps you trapped in the logic of lack. lack of time, lack of money, lack of opportunity, lack of youth. And the more you believe in that, the more you disconnect from your real field of creation, which only exists in the expanded now, where time is spiral and you are the center. All of this was common in ancient cultures, but today it's disappeared. And it wasn't by accident. This wisdom was taken from our hands, and the reason is more serious than you think. The disconnection was programmed. You're not disconnected by accident. This was designed. It was systematically crafted to make you feel separated from yourself, as if there's something wrong with you, as if the problem is your distraction, your lack of discipline, your confusion. But it's not. The problem is that you were conditioned from an early age to think within a mold that doesn't fit the consciousness you carry. That mold has a name, the prison of time. And the structure that supports this prison isn't made of walls. It's made of repeated thoughts, programmed ideas, emotional patterns that recycle themselves as if they were absolute truths. You need to chase after it. You're late. It should have happened by now. Time is running out. Phrases that seem normal but keep you in a constant state of alert, always under pressure, always in debt to the future. Do you know why? Because guilt and fear are the fuel of this mechanism. Guilt for what's past, fear of what hasn't come yet. Two forces that, according to spiritual alchemy, are like heavy metals in the subtle body, impurities that block the flow of your soul. And the more you identify with them, the more you forget who you are. Thoth was clear when he said, only through purification of the mind can man be freed from the chains of time. Chains. That's the word. Because time, the way you were taught to perceive it, isn't neutral. It was turned into a vibrational prison. And while you're trapped in that frequency, nothing truly transforms. You can even change your routine, your environment, your goals. But if your thinking keeps spinning in the same linear logic, the feeling of emptiness always comes back because the emptiness is the sign. It's the symptom of a mind that knows it's operating below its natural power. This model of thinking has been reinforced over centuries by structures that feed off your disconnection, not out of malice, but out of interest. A being connected to real time, to the time of the spirit, doesn't need permission, doesn't follow a schedule, doesn't live in scarcity, and that scares those who feed off your dependence. That's why the ancient teachings were hidden, burned, distorted. The Emerald Tablet, the Gnostic texts, the Dead Sea Scrolls, all speak about the eternal nature of the human being. But that view was replaced by a doctrine of submission. The idea that you were born wrong, that you need to be saved, that you must wait for redemption from outside. All of this reinforces the same foundation, keeping you out of real time. And when you're out of real time, you lose synchronicity. You start acting out of sync with the rhythm of the universe. You start working against your own current. And then the signs show up. Constant anxiety, insomnia, the feeling that you're always running but never arriving. The mind speeds up but with no direction. The soul wants to move forward but something holds it back. This happens when consciousness is trying to expand but the mind is still trapped in the old script. That script is everywhere. It's in education systems that don't educate. They condition. It's in religions that don't free. They guilt trip. It's in family cycles that don't heal. They just repeat. And you, in the middle of it all, start to doubt your own intuition. You start thinking you're the problem, but you're not. You're just trying to live in a format that no longer fits your consciousness. And that effort makes you sick. Because when the spirit wants to grow but the mind is blocked by linear patterns, the body starts sending signs. Sadness shows up, boredom grows, creativity dies. You feel like you're standing on the sidelines of your own life. And all of this doesn't happen because you're disconnected, but because your connection was sabotaged. The good news, that sabotage isn't permanent, because no matter how much they tried to disconnect you, There's a force inside you that never shut off. A silent spark that sometimes whispers, sometimes shouts, sometimes shows up as a dream, a coincidence, an unexplained urge to change everything. And it's in those moments that the system breaks because the calling comes. And when it comes, you can't ignore it. You feel it in your body. A chill for no reason. Butterflies before something happens. A strange feeling that you've already lived that moment before, even though you haven't. You dream about someone and the next day you meet them. You think about something and suddenly it shows up in front of you. Coincidence? No, that's consciousness leaking through. It's your deeper self trying to show you that time isn't as rigid as it seems, that there's a part of you that already knows what's coming because, in a way, it's already been there. And when that self touches your current reality, it sends signals, fragments, points of light between the cracks in the programming. And that's why you feel what you feel. In Hermeticism, this is clearly explained. Time is a sensory illusion, says the Kabbalion. The ordinary mind lives in a linear way, but higher consciousness, what the ancients called the inner self, the divine self or the multidimensional self, operates outside the line. It moves like a mirror reflecting all your versions at the same time. The ones that already fell, the ones that already won, the ones that already broke free. And when one of those versions touches your current awareness, something awakens. That's why deja vu happens. That's why certain dreams feel more real than the actual day that follows. That's why you have gut feelings that make no logical sense but turn out to be right. It's not delusion. It's not nonsense. It's vibrational memory. Thoth explained this by saying that man lives on multiple planes simultaneously. While your conscious mind focuses on the now, your spiritual field stretches across dimensions where time isn't chronological. It's vibrational. And that completely changes the way you interpret reality. Because suddenly it's not about predicting the future anymore, it's about remembering it. Time doesn't have to move forward, it can spin, it can bend, it can collapse into moments that seem small but hold decades of meaning. And that happens whenever your field resonates with something that already exists in another frequency. It's like you're receiving letters from yourself, signs from your own path. And that kind of inner communication has no rational language. It speaks through sensations. That's why so many people ignore it, because they expect the answer to come as a sentence. But it comes as a shiver. It comes as silence. It comes as an unexplainable certainty. You've felt this before. That intuition you can't justify but keeps you from taking a certain path. That yes you say without thinking. That pause that comes out of nowhere. All of this is your higher layers trying to make contact with your current consciousness. And when that contact happens, logic breaks. Because it's not about logic, it's about vibration. You can try to resist. You can ignore it. You can keep following the plan you made based on the rules you were taught. But at some point, that part of you will come back. It'll poke you again. It'll keep pushing until you realize that something bigger is trying to emerge. And maybe that something is you. This communication between layers is what esoteric schools called the voice of the spirit. It's subtle but firm. It's gentle but persistent. And the more you try to ignore it, the more the universe starts showing you what you've been avoiding. Not as punishment, but as a calling. A calling to leave mechanical time. A calling to abandon the illusion that everything needs to be explained. A calling to accept that you are much more than this body, this mind, this story. Because if you feel the calling, it means you're already ready to cross the veil. Four-dimensional thinking is not a metaphor, it's practice. What if you could do this intentionally and not just when it happens by accident? You can. And this is where 4D thinking stops being a nice idea and becomes a real tool. It's not a metaphor or a figure of speech, it's practice. It's spiritual technology applied to your consciousness. Think about it. If your mind has the power to access fragments of the future, feel echoes of the past, and sense realities that haven't yet manifested, why would that happen if everything were fixed, predetermined, rigid? The answer is simple: it's not. Your mind is an instrument of interference. It doesn't just observe, it shapes. This was already taught by Thoth millennia ago. In Tablet 4, he reveals the universe responds to the movement of the mind. This means that thought is not a product of reality. It's a lever that moves the structure of reality itself. What you think, feel, and believe emits a frequency, and that frequency changes the settings of the field you are accessing. The field doesn't respond to your desire, it responds to your coherence. Modern science, though still reluctant, has started to prove this. Neuroplasticity has shown that the brain can physically reconfigure itself based on recurring thoughts. Synapses reorganize. Areas of the brain expand or shrink depending on the mental content you feed it. That means your mind shapes your body. But it doesn't stop there. Epigenetics has shown that even your genes respond to your emotional environment. Emotions like anger, fear, and long-term resentment alter gene expression. It's as if your whole body is a living canvas reacting to what you vibrate. Now imagine that on a more subtle level. Imagine not just your physical body, but the reality around you behaving in the same way. That's 4D thinking. Thinking in 4D means stopping seeing time as a line and starting to see it as a field of response, a field of possibilities, a field of creation. When you think with depth, presence, and real emotion, you send out an energetic signature. That signature echoes into the field around you and creates collision points with possibilities vibrating at the same frequency. And this isn't empty philosophy. It's a real field. It's the structure of reality. The ordinary mind thinks creating reality means making an effort, that you have to act, hustle, repeat affirmations endlessly. But the field doesn't move with effort. It moves with aligned vibration. That's why sometimes you think of someone and they show up. You feel something strongly and a sign appears because in that moment you collapsed layers. You vibrated outside the line. And this happens all the time. But most people don't notice. They think it was coincidence, luck, intuition. When in reality it was a real frequency emission causing a shift in the field. Mental alchemy works exactly with this, with the ability to transmute vibrational patterns through the mind. It's not about thinking positively. It's about thinking consciously. You can emit a vibration of lack while wishing for abundance. You can desire love and still emit rejection. The field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are in the exact moment of emission. That's why so many people say they think positively, but nothing changes. Because thinking without the body, without presence, without coherence changes nothing. But thinking in 4D is different. Thinking in 4D means thinking with vibration, intention, and emotion united. It means knowing that you are programming invisible layers that will collapse ahead. And the most surprising part of all this emission doesn't only affect what's coming, it also echoes back into what already happened. Because the time field doesn't separate past from future, it reads frequencies. And if an old frequency is still active, it keeps producing results now. But that also means that if you change your vibration now, you change how the past acts upon you. Yes, the past also reacts to what you think now. And this is exactly where the shift begins, when you understand that it's possible to rewrite the impact of a wound even without changing what happened. Because even if you can't change the facts, you can change the vibration they left in you. And that changes everything. That's real alchemy. Not the mystical alchemy of folklore, but true inner alchemy. The one Thoth taught long before science even existed. Turning lead into gold was never about metal. It was always about consciousness. The lead is the trauma, the pain, the guilt you carry as a silent weight in your body. The gold is the clarity, the release, the frequency that emerges when you transmute that pain into wisdom. And that process doesn't require going back to the past. It requires entering the present with such intensity that the old vibration simply can't sustain itself anymore. Thoth's Tablet 9 makes this clear. Free the past through sound, light, and the word. 3 tools, 3 keys. Sounds that vibrate through the body and reprogram memory. Light that penetrates subtle layers of the mind and reveals what was hidden. And the word, the spoken word with intention that alters emotional circuits. That's why when you speak about a trauma in a new way, something shifts. When you take a firm stand in front of a memory, even if it still hurts, you begin to reprogram the vibrational charge it carries. Because the trauma isn't stuck in time, it's stuck in the body, in the field. And when you change the vibration, the field responds and the past loses strength. Neuroscience proves this. Studies show that the brain rebuilds memories every time you remember them. In other words, each memory is an edit. And if you step into that memory with a new emotion, it updates. Not in the facts, but in the vibration. And it's that vibration that creates your reality now. So think, how many situations do you silently relive every day? How many memories do you carry as if they're still happening? Rejection, humiliation, abandonment, guilt, fear, all of that is still pulsing. Not because it happened, but because you still vibrate the same when you remember. And here comes Thoth's key. Vibrational transmutation doesn't happen through positive thinking. It happens when you look at what was with a different frequency, when you can remember without tensing up, when you allow yourself to feel but without drowning in it. When you breathe through the internal chaos and say, "This happened, but it doesn't define me." In that moment, the lead starts to dissolve and the gold starts to emerge. This process is real and it's immediate. It doesn't require years of therapy. It doesn't require you to understand everything. It requires presence. It requires truth. It requires conscious intention. And the more you practice this, the more you start to realize that the story that holds you has already lost its power. That the scene that used to hurt now doesn't sting the same. That the image of the pain starts to change color because the vibration is no longer the same. And when the vibration shifts, the past stops controlling you. That's why people who meditate deeply report healing old traumas. That's why vibrational techniques like the use of sound, breathwork, or conscious speech bring immediate relief. It's not magic. It's vibrational physics applied to the field of memory. And that's where the most powerful practices begin. First key, meditation without effort, just presence. And the first practice begins with something you already know but have never truly experienced the right way. Meditation. But here, meditation isn't about closing your eyes and trying to push thoughts away. It's not about emptying the mind. What Thoth taught is the opposite. It's about no longer running from it. It's about entering silence without fighting it. Allowing the thoughts to come and go without clinging, without guilt, without trying to control. Because what causes suffering is not the thought itself. It's the internal friction. It's the resistance. It's the urge to run whenever something uncomfortable shows up. True four-dimensional meditation begins the moment you choose to face the mirror without looking away. To sit with yourself, with everything you feel, with everything you remember, and breathe there. Thoth said, "Know thyself, and you will know the secrets of time." And the only place where that happens is in the now. The now is the only point where all of time bends. The only moment where past, future, and present cross paths. And when you are fully there, without judgment, you access the real field. The frequency that doesn't depend on effort, only on truth. It's in that place where the field starts to reprogram itself because the body senses that you're no longer trying to escape. The nervous system begins to release. The mind quiets down, and the field around you responds. The practice isn't about stopping thought, it's about stopping resistance, stopping the chase, stopping the fight against yourself. That's the moment when the frequency shifts. But there's an invisible detail that can sabotage everything. Intention. Because nothing happens if your intention is out of alignment. You can sit in silence for hours, but if deep down you're trying to prove something, to heal just to please someone, to become enlightened out of pride, the field doesn't respond. Because the vibration that activates the field isn't desire, it's truth, it's surrender. And this brings us to the second key, intention as frequency. Not as positive thinking, not as visualization, but as real energetic alignment. Intention is the invisible tone behind your action. It's what your field is shouting, even if your mouth says something else. That's why if you keep repeating phrases like, "Nothing ever works for me," "I always mess things up," "Nobody understands me," you're feeding exactly the frequency you're trying to transmute. That's not your fault. It's a pattern. And the pattern only changes when you begin to observe what you say, what you think, what you emit even in silence. In Hermeticism, this is called the power of the word. Thoth said, "The word is the seed of reality." Every phrase is a vibrational code. Every word charged with emotion is like an energetic command. When you speak something with power, the universe hears it. When you believe it, the field obeys, even if it's something negative. So real alchemy requires you to break those phrases, to replace "I'm unlucky" with "I'm learning to vibrate differently," to switch "I can't" for "I'm still developing this ability." It's not about lying to yourself, it's about tuning into a new field. It's about raising your internal mercury, the mind, until it merges with the gold of pure consciousness. And that's when everything begins to vibrate stronger. When you think in 4D, the world recognizes your signature. You can think clearly, feel deeply, and even intend with faith. But if your actions contradict all of that, the field stalls. Because the universe doesn't respond to theory. It responds to coherence. It's not intention alone that activates reality. It's the union of mind, word, and behavior. When everything vibrates in harmony, reality bends. This is the fourth key, and this is where most people get stuck without realizing it. Because there's still the belief that it's enough to simply wish or repeat affirmations. But if your mouth says one thing, your heart feels another, and your body acts out of alignment, you emit interference, and the field interprets that incoherence as vibrational instability. The Emerald Tablet teaches, "As above, so below, as within, so without." This isn't symbolic, it's literal. Your external world reflects the exact frequency of your internal organization. So if you want prosperity but act out of fear, if you seek love but keep sabotaging yourself, if you aim for growth but continue feeding judgment, the universe mirrors that fragmented frequency right back to you. That's why the fifth key comes next. Resonance. Resonance is the field that's generated when everything in you vibrates in the same tone, when thought, emotion, word, and action align like a perfect musical note. That's the moment reality begins to shape without resistance, because you stop fighting the field and start harmonizing with it. And more, this frequency amplifies when you come into contact with others who vibrate in the same field. In Hermetic schools, this was called a vibrational choir, a group that creates a field of mutual amplification. That's why when you surround yourself with people who live the same purpose, who speak the same internal language, manifestation accelerates. Reality intensifies. The signs multiply. This is how the field recognizes what's real. Through consistency, through the vibration that holds even outside the ritual, even after meditation, even in the face of chaos. And when that happens, something changes, because you no longer have to chase miracles. You become the miracle. But this transformation only completes when your vibration begins to speak for you. when your energetic signature is so coherent, so integrated that the universe responds before you even ask. Everything you see around you now, everything that surrounds you was shaped by your previous vibration, and when you start thinking in 4D, something shifts. The doors open not because the world changed, but because you did.